She was last seen in a house that should have been safe, and a witness quiet. Precise memories of unlocked doors, a hidden fridge, and behavior nobody wanted to confront have forced this case to be seen in a different light, not only as a search for a missing child, but as an inquiry into what might have been permitted, hidden, or covered up inside a family home. If you follow this channel, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you'll get verified updates as investigators recheck scenes, test old leads, or release official statements. We'll keep tracking developments and bring you careful, evidence-focused reporting, not rumor, because in cases like this, accuracy matters more than noise. The account that changed the texture of this investigation didn't come from a headline-grabbing confession or a viral clip. It came from a neighbor, Jose Roman, who described details that, if corroborated, shift the lens from a stranger abduction to a series of household risks and possible scene alterations. Roman said Summer had previously left the house unsupervised, that the basement door lacked a deadbolt and was effectively blocked by furniture rather than secured, and that an old refrigerator, something the witness believed could have been used as a hiding place, disappeared or was never properly cataloged by investigators. Those are the kinds of small, domestic facts that can prove crucial in reconstructing what happened on any given day. They are mundane in isolation but powerful together, a home with normal, everyday vulnerabilities, adults who normalize them, and objects moved or removed in the aftermath. When a witness reports that a basement door had no deadbolt and that a couch was used as a makeshift barrier, investigators immediately think about access and concealment. A deadbolt is a simple, hard physical barrier. Its absence changes the calculus of how a child could leave the house or how someone might enter. A couch pushed into a doorway is not a lock. It is a visual and functional obstacle that can be moved, and one that signals informal measures rather than deliberate safety planning. In many missing child investigations, questions about door locks, window latches, and unsecured access points are basic but vital. They help investigators determine whether a child might have wandered out, whether an opportunistic passerby might have entered without force, or whether someone with regular access could have moved about the property without raising alarm. Romans claim that a deadbolt was installed only after the disappearance, if confirmed through contemporaneous records, receipts, or photographic evidence, would matter a great deal because it suggests scene alteration after the fact. Investigators always look for changes made at a location between the time of an incident and the time law enforcement gains full control. Those changes can be innocent, a family replacing a broken lock for safety, or they can complicate an inquiry when timing and motive are unclear. Documentation is what separates a credible investigative lead from speculation. Receipts for hardware, timestamps on photos, dated maintenance records, or testimony from neighbors who noticed a truck carrying materials. Forensic teams prefer hard verification to second-hand recollection, but when a clear pattern of after-the-fact modification emerges, it demands explanation. Perhaps the most tangible and eerie detail in Roman's account concerns an old refrigerator that reportedly served as a hiding place and then vanished or was insufficiently cataloged. An appliance used to stash items is an unusual but not unheard of detail in criminal investigations. Refrigerators can be moved, buried, or disposed of. They can conceal odor, blood, or fibers if improperly handled. When investigators say certain objects were not listed or were moved, that raises immediate red flags. What was in or behind that appliance? Was it present on scene during early searches and later gone? If so, who removed it and under whose authority? Such questions require chain of custody logs, witness interviews about who had keys or permission to move items, and records from salvage or waste services. The importance of an overlooked object is not about its strangeness alone, but about whether it could have held or obscured material evidence. In cases with no obvious traces, no clothing, no footprints, no blood, even a single object unaccounted for can represent a missed opportunity. Roman's testimony also focused attention on behavioral patterns inside the home. He reported adults' dismissive responses to safety risks and alleged episodes he saw as boundary violations. For example, an account that Don Wells bathed naked with his daughter. That allegation, explosive as it is, must be handled with utmost care. When a witness reports conduct that suggests grooming or inappropriate sexualized behavior, investigators treat that as a serious claim requiring corroboration, careful interview technique with all relevant witnesses, and, where appropriate, forensic medical review of any available records. Public reporting of such allegations must be tempered with the understanding that they are allegations. They increase the urgency of inquiry, but do not stand as proof on their own. Investigators will seek contemporaneous reports, medical records, and other witnesses who can place such behavior in context. They will also be mindful of the immense reputational and legal consequences that flow from public disclosure of such claims. The broader theme of Roman's account, adults normalizing unsafe conditions, has a direct bearing on the question of negligence. In missing child cases, investigators consider whether supervision was adequate given the child's age, the setting, and the presence of unrelated adults or workers on the property. Jose's description of nightly abusive financial calls from Dawn, creating distraction and instability, feeds into a picture of a household under stress. Stressors do not equal culpability, but chronic distraction and volatile home conditions can increase the likelihood of lapses in supervision. Neglect charges in criminal statutes often hinge on a pattern of disregard for a child's safety rather than a single moment of inattention. Accordingly, investigators will compile domestic history, prior CPS involvement, witness statements about living conditions, and any previous reports of neglect to determine whether a pattern existed. Another significant point, Roman says the family publicly insisted on an abduction narrative and denied prior escape incidents. When public messaging and private histories diverge, investigators take note. It is common for families traumatized by a disappearance to put forward the most hopeful scenario, that the child was taken rather than harmed, because it sustains action and hope. But if witnesses report prior unattended exits or risky behaviors the family denies, that contradiction must be resolved by checking records, corroborating with neighbors, and examining policy interactions with child protective services. The perception that a family is shaping a narrative to deflect culpability is a cautionary tale in the court of public opinion. In a formal investigation, such perceptions must be tested against objective records. Allegations of scene alteration, edited furniture, modifications to the property are especially fraught. It is not unusual for families, in the chaos after a disappearance, to rearrange, clean, or even remove items in the belief that they are protecting privacy or saving family property. Those actions can nevertheless destroy transient evidence, footprints, hair fibers, or other trace materials. Investigators catalog and photograph everything from the moment they can, and they seek to preserve a chain of custody for items of interest. If Roman's claims that items were moved or vanishing objects were not cataloged are accurate, they highlight procedural risks and the need for rigorous scene control. Documented scene integrity, who entered the home, when and for what purpose, becomes a central line of inquiry. The presence of a couch used as a makeshift barrier and the idea that a refrigerator could serve as a hiding spot both underscore the degree to which ordinary household objects can figure into serious investigations. Forensic teams will consider whether the couch could hide a person, serve as evidence of hurried movement, or simply indicate a family's attempt to block a basement without securing it properly. They will seek to establish who had access to that furniture and when it was moved. A refrigerator's removal or disappearance will be cross-checked with municipal pickup records, scrap dealers, and any photos from early searches. In many investigations, seemingly small details, where the couch was placed, whether a deadbolt existed, end up being the difference between a closed and an open lead. There is also an important legal and ethical dimension to weigh. Claims about neglect, staging, or boundary violations plunge a community into frenzied speculation. Responsible professionals, detectives, prosecutors, and child protection workers know that public accusation without verified evidence does harm. Yet investigators also recognize that an unexamined witness account can hide vital truth. The proper response is procedural: document, test, corroborate, and preserve. Investigators will typically return to the property with warrants if needed, re-interview witnesses, obtain transactional records for hardware or appliance removal, and seek forensic testing where appropriate. Prosecutors will only proceed if evidence meets the threshold for probable cause and, ultimately, the higher standard required for conviction. In practical terms, this means the case will require three kinds of follow-up to treat Roman's report seriously. First, physical verification, checking photos from initial searches, reviewing chain of custody logs, and finding receipts or waste hauler records for any removed appliances. Second, testimonial corroboration, re-interviewing neighbors, extended family, and anyone who entered the home near the time of disappearance to see whether their recollections align with Jose's. Third, forensic analysis. If an object such as a refrigerator or couch was present and later removed, investigators will examine whether biological material or fibers were tested and whether those tests can be rerun using modern methods if samples were retained. That forensic thread is the pathway from allegation to evidence. The stakes are not merely investigative. They are human. If Roman's account is accurate, it points to a child at risk, a household that failed to secure basic safety, and possible attempts to obscure that vulnerability afterward. If Roman's account is inaccurate, it is nonetheless the kind of claim that will not be ignored, because the only safe way to dismiss a potentially damning detail is to check it thoroughly. The community's demand for certainty collides with the slow, methodical pace of forensic proof. In the interim, reckless speculation damages reputations and can hamper cooperation. The responsible path is to press investigators to do their job transparently while resisting the urge to declare guilt before evidence supports it. To close, witness reports about unlocked doors, moved furniture, and vanished refrigerators are not peripheralities. They strike at the heart of reconstructing a day where answers are scarce. They demand documentation, measurement, and forensic rigor. They require investigators to pursue municipality records, reopen scene logs, and, if necessary, execute search warrants. They also require the public to keep two channels open: pressure for action and patience for procedure. Summer Wells's disappearance remains a tragic, unresolved wound. Whether the truth lies in a lapse of supervision, a deliberate act, or a combination of disturbing household dynamics and foul play, the path to resolution is the same. Verify, corroborate, and let evidence, not rumor, determine the next steps. For anyone with concrete, time-stamped information, or physical evidence related to any object removed from the home, the most useful thing you can do is pass that information to investigators, not to social feeds. Accurate, verifiable tips are the only way to turn witness claim into corroborated fact and to give a family and a community the clear answers they deserve.